And we are back with Glenn and Stacy Murphy, head men's basketball coach, Mike Brey. First question this afternoon will be coming from Tom Noy.
Hey, Mike, two questions for you. How big of a challenge are these next 5 months going to be? And how often do you find yourself thinking, how are we going to get through all this? Like, how are we going to get to March?
Great question, Tom. You're really living day to day, and you're right. When you try and think of 5 months and getting to March, that's a little bit too much to bite off, quite frankly. It's been just awesome to be back and in training since mid-August and being in the gym with our guys. It's an aggressive December schedule, obviously, and when you see the two league games that'll plug in tomorrow when that's released on the 16th and the 22nd, you'll know that I've lost my mind completely. My feeling was, though, and a little bit to answer that question of thinking 5 months, my feeling was to really go for it and schedule big, exciting games for our kids, because I don't know what's going to happen the rest of the winter, after the first of the year. What are we like in February? Is there a March Madness? So to give our kids just an unbelievable experience, and you've seen the non-league games that are out there, again, when the 16th and the 22nd dates and opponents plug in tomorrow, no one has never had 8 games like that to start the season. And if you think of our schedule, 27 games, 25 of them are Power 5 conference games. And my feeling is, your scheduling strategy, whatever, for your resume, that's all out the window. Stop. Let's play and let's get our kids playing, and hopefully we play most of the 27.
Our next question will be coming from John Finneran.
Hi, Mike. Good to see you. Just want to ask you a couple things. Brings up to date with the health of your players coming back. The second question is, how do you replace somebody like John Mooney with what he brought to you? And talk a little bit about the growth of some of your returnees.
No, I appreciate those. Back to the schedule. You don't throw these kind of games on the board non-league unless you think you got a group that you can have some fun with. We wouldn't schedule like this unless you saw at the end of last year, the second half of last year, the light bulb go on for some of our young players, especially our juniors, our junior class, which we invested in as freshmen, and they got their backsides handed to them, and then they grew. But we're pretty healthy. Obviously, you saw the announcement. Elijah Taylor had an issue with a tendon in his ankle. We would have loved to do the surgery in the summer, but we didn't have him here in the summer, and we couldn't ramp him up. And because of COVID, you couldn't really ramp him up to see if we had an option that he needed surgery, which he did. We were hoping he did not. And that is why we're going to wait till the end of the semester and let him finish his academics, then get him operated on. So when he comes back to summer school in June, he'll be full barrel. Everybody else is back going with us. Obviously, except Robbie Carmody had a little bit of a setback with a fractured kneecap. I think by Christmas he's back on the practice court. But the rest of our guys have remained healthy. And again, we probably had 22 practices. We had some preseason stuff. Never have we had more preseason because we started school earlier. And what I've loved is, and no one's been able to see our guys yet, none of you have been able to, I'm really excited about our strength training, because even though we lost summer school, which is a great strength training 6 weeks, we made it up in a Leshevsky body, Durham's 240. You're going to look and go, Cormac Ryan's different. Physically, we really look good, and we had more time because we started school earlier with Tony Berlinski.
Our next question is coming from Tim Priester.
Mike, 2 years ago when all these guys were freshmen, you knew what you were in for. You expected an uptick last year. I just wonder, going into this year, if you can pull this season off, just what your expectations are for this group. And then secondly, what do you anticipate as far as a ruling with Trey Wertz?
We really feel, Tim, that we can be an NCAA tournament team. We're back in that mode. I think we all knew we had to swallow when these juniors were freshmen, and we lost Pfluger, and we swallowed hard, quite frankly. I was very proud of, after being 2-6 coming out of Tallahassee, that we went 9-4 down the stretch, and we would have been an NIT team last year, most likely, and that would have been good for our group. Nobody wants to miss the NCAA tournament, certainly not us. We've been in it a lot since I've been here. But there was a kind of build back kind of opportunity there, or phase that we had to go through. And so, I mentioned a little bit about how that junior class looks physically, and it's too bad, you guys would have all been into an open practice by now in a normal world. And we're going to try and maybe figure something out. Maybe, Alan, we can put them on the track in the practice facility in the next couple weeks. But we'll bug Alan about that. We'll work on it. So Tim, I'm really excited about our group. You add a Cormac Ryan. Our starting lineup, if we played tonight, would be Hub, Ryan, Goodwin, Leshevsky, Durham. Those 5 guys have played a lot of college basketball. They know how we play. They're older. They get it. Now it's a matter of finding Matt Zona coming off the bench, who's been very impressive for us. I've been very impressed as a young guy for him. Nick Jogo, a 50-year guy coming off. Tony Sander, and you mentioned Trey Wertz. Now, Trey came under the total understanding, like what we've done with all our transfers. You sit a year in residency, you get older, you get stronger, then you get eligible. About 3 weeks ago, along with Brent Moberg and our compliance, we came up with a proposal, and Brent did a fabulous job writing it. My theory was this should be an all-hands-on-deck season to get through the season. And we're already going down the line, the NCAA that is, in college basketball. We've seen a lot of waivers, all right? Kids are getting waivers to play, and more are getting, many more are getting waivers than denied. And I get that. That's fine. Whatever. That's great. I don't know why anyone on my roster would be ineligible in a COVID season. Trey Wertz could be my 7th man one night if we're going to play NC State, and we wouldn't have to cancel the game. If he's ineligible under the residency rules of sitting out, I may have to cancel the game if I have some guys that test positive that are in quarantine. So we proposed this 3 weeks ago. All hands on deck. Anybody on your roster should be eligible to put in the game. And I think it naturally fits with, we gave everyone their year of eligibility back a month ago anyways. Trey Wertz, let's look at Trey's case. He still has his 2 full years of eligibility that he was expecting when he came here, even if he plays half the games this year or only 12 minutes. So I would hope, and I think there's some momentum picking up on this. It's just logical. You look at football games have been canceled because there's not enough guys. Utah didn't have enough guys. What is it, 53? What's the basketball number going to be? I think you need 7 to play a game. No one said anything. We don't have a league rule. I've not seen a national rule. But anyone on my roster or anyone's roster should be eligible to play, and we're going to continue to campaign and lobby the NCAA. I believe some other leagues have picked up on this. The other reason is in January, everyone's going to be eligible on a transfer moving forward anyways. The year in residency is going to go out the window most likely at the convention in January. But in the midst of this, if I have a roster of 12 guys, which I do, Trey Wertz being one of them, Elijah Morgan, my walk-on, I need all those guys eligible night to night because I'm going to need them all to get through 5 months.
Our next question will be from Tom Noy.
Mike, when Rex left, that kind of closed the book on the Elite Eight chapter. You don't have anybody on the roster that's been to an Elite Eight. How can that be good for this group and especially that junior class this year?
Well, I think Tom, there's some hunger. I mean, we were picked 90th in the nation by CBS the other day, and I've seen us picked 15th and 14th and 12th, And I remind them of that, and I don't even have to, you know. So there's a little bit of an edge about the junior class, especially, that was kicked around, has shown they've got some life, and would really like to deliver. And it's like a 2-year team, you know. I know Durham and Jogo certainly will have roles and will play, but it's almost like the nucleus of this group. It's a 2-year group. And that's what I'm excited about. Heck, it could be a 3-year group with the ruling that went through. They all have the year back anyways, which the plot thickens down the road. So I've been excited to kind of get to this point, and I think I started to see it after Tallahassee, you know, because for a year and a half, we took our medicine and we were treated like young guys, which they were. So I think there's a little bit of an edge to kind of prove themselves to earn an NCAA tournament, you know, bid. And again, the voices, there's 2 loud voices in our locker room. You know, it's Prentice Hub's team, as it should be, but Cormac Ryan being injected into the eligibility part of it is a great voice. And, you know, your 2 guards kind of setting the tone and understanding how we play and leading. I'm really excited about watching them kind of help me run the group through the next 5 months.
Our next question will be from Patrick Engel of Blue and Gold Illustrated.
Hey, Mike, when you mentioned some of the just challenges about getting through the season and the uncertainty, what have you found through a few weeks of practice are some of the hardest things? And just when you look at the regulations or recommendations from the NCAA about quarantining or contact tracing and whatnot, what are the things in your mind that kind of make some things hard to get through and like you said, hoping to play as much of the 27 as you can?
Well, unlike football, you know, we're going to have multiple games a week. So you're testing 3 times a week and multiple games. You know, this is all new territory. Like, I think everyone out there in college athletics and fans have gotten into the rhythm of how football testing happens. And we've seen cancer. But now we play Saturday, Monday, Saturday. This is going to get really interesting. And I don't know if we know how it's going to go till we're just thrown into it here in about 2 weeks. So it's 3 tests a week. Right now we're at 1 a week, but we will ramp that up next week to 2 a week. And then when we start playing, 3 a week. And then you manage it as best you can. You know, we practice in the masks and we're all in the masks. And I wondered how that would go. And our guys have been fabulous. They practice in them. They don't complain about it. Certainly we're going to be able to compete without the masks, but my feeling is we should then always practice in the masks. Even though the season starts, I don't think we need to be out of the masks in practice. We're accustomed to them now. We'll be wearing them on the sideline, obviously, as coaches. But you know, the multiple games a week, the multiple travel a week is territory that makes me nervous, quite frankly. And we're going to do the best we can with it. And I give our guys credit. They have been pretty darn resilient, just coming in and hanging and understanding it and knowing we're going to be thrown some major curves and we're going to have games canceled. And we're just going to deal with it and we're going to be tough about it and we're going to move forward. And I think as the leader, more than any year I've been in coaching, just the frame of mind of the young people, and we're going to keep plugging, and we're going to not be knocked back, and we're going to have disappointments in our schedule and disappointments with guys unavailable, but we are going to keep plugging and we're going to keep playing. And you know, I think as you know, my job is to kind of keep them in that frame of mind for 5 months.
Our next question will be from Darren Pritchett.
Coach, I was just wondering, with Cormac now fully installed into your team, what are some of the key traits he's going to bring to this basketball team?
You know, I tell people, and you know, Cormac will remind people of a Vastoria Chris Quinn kind of guard, which I certainly mean that as a big-time compliment in the history of our program. You know, he's a combo guard. He's a little bit more of a point guard than TJ and Rex were. So Prentice kind of has a ball-handling running mate, which we've played that way before, and it's been very effective, McElharney and Jackson and Quinn and Thomas, and there's others I know. And so I've liked his creativity and ball handling. He can really shoot the basketball. He's a better athlete than people know. He's every bit of 6'4" and got good strength and can get to the basket. There's a toughness about him. He's got an edge about him. But what I've loved watching over 20-some practices is he and Hub interchangeable and two kind of quarterbacks on the court, which has really served us well in other years.
The next question will be coming from Tim O'Malley.
Coach, I know you have to replace Mooney's rebounding, especially in the aggregate. But have you seen Juwan Durham take a little bit of ownership of the increased role? You were complimentary of him in the past, where he had to work in different roles wherever you needed him, 2 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And now obviously he's thrust into a lead role.
Well, there's no question. I mean, when 12 rebounds walks out of the building and they were just automatic with Johnny Mooney, I think that would be my biggest concern. How do we defensive rebound? But you guys have heard me say that at times through the years. How do we rebound and keep some of the amazing athletic ability that's in our league off the backboard enough? Mooney kind of just handled that the last 2 years. But I look at it, and I think Nate Laszewski, we saw much improvement as a rebounder the second half of last season. And he's got a knack for going and getting it, as does Juwan. Juwan is up to 240. See, you guys can't even picture that right now. And again, if you were walking in and been in practice, where we are physically is, I'm just so pleased with where we are physically. And Juwan and Laszewski maybe made the biggest jumps. Laszewski's got to be 230, but he's got a complete different, he looks like a young man now. He was a child, right, for 2 years and was pushed around and banged around, but he fought and he tried. Now he's got a little physical presence, that whole junior thing. And Juwan finally has been able to keep some weight on. But Juwan and Nate are going to have to get on that backboard for us, and then our perimeter is going to have to really help us rebound because, like you said, Johnny just went and got you 12 every night, and it was easy.
Next question will be coming from Pete Byrne.
Hey, Coach, you kind of answered this a little bit just now, but I'll take it a step further. Time and time again in your program, you've had a post player that's kind of been an afterthought as a younger player, only to emerge as a player of the year in Jack Cooley, or August kind of had to wait and mature, or Mooney was an afterthought when he was young and then blossomed. Between Laszewski and Durham, do you think one of those guys could emerge as not just a good player, but a great player?
Pete, I'm kind of excited for both of them, quite frankly. The one thing that really helps both of them, Johnny Mooney has left the building. And we've had that happen when Zach August then blossomed, or Bonzi, or whoever. Somebody leaves the building who's a main guy, as in Mooney, and then that junior who's been in the program has opportunity, and now, from my point of view, I have to play them 28 to 30 minutes. I don't have another choice. And it's amazing when they're older and I'm forced with that dynamic that a young man really blossoms for us. So I think both of them, again, Laszewski's change physically has been the most staggering. And a lot of these kids, it just didn't start August 15th. Tony Rolinsky did a fabulous job communicating long distance during COVID all summer without summer school. And they all found weight rooms eventually. After the lockdown initially in March and April, they found a way to get to a weight room. They all got creative. They all had a nice routine, and they came back, looking really good. And so, again, the junior year, Pete, Nate is that junior. Here's that third year guy. And we've had just some great stories in year 3.
Next question will be from Tom Noy.
Mike, 2 things real quick. Have you had any player have to miss time because of COVID, either contact tracing or quarantine or whatever? And then with the concern on the travel, how big of an issue was that in bowing out of going to Mohegan Sun?
Yes, no, Tom, we have, just like everybody, we have had some guys miss because of COVID testing. We've worked around it. There's been some days where we were more 4-on-4 in practice. Scott Martin can still get out there and compete, so we've thrown him in drills and things. For the most part, though, we've been really pretty whole. I've been very pleased with how whole we are. As far as Mohegan's Sun, two things were going on there. Number one, they were changing the date to early December. And back at the time we had to make a decision, and I stick to our guns and my bosses, the protocols of lining up the Mohegan Sun bubble with what we felt was safe. You got to remember, it was when our Wake Forest football game was. We had a lot going on campus then, but I still think for us, as you saw, we're playing all individual games in buildings. Let's either other than the Crossroads, which is a doubleheader, but everything else is going to be a one-shot, two teams in the gym, you go in, you go out, and we just felt more comfortable with that, and we felt more comfortable, not playing USC, Vanderbilt, or UConn in that December window. We felt we wanted to start a different way, and now, even though we lost those two power games in the Mohegan Sun, we certain didn't lose power in the schedule, as you can see by what we signed up for in our non-league.
Next question will be from Patrick Engel.
Mike, I know you've touched on the possibility and intrigue of a small lineup with Nate at the 5 when Juwan is out there as one option for when Juwan's not out there. Has the injury to Elijah kind of changed your thinking or kind of given you more clarity of kind of what the options might be for the minutes you have to use without Juwan, whether it's the small lineup or more with Matt Zona now that you've seen him in practice?
Well, the one thing, as you guys know, and heck, I can remember we may have started the downshifting with Chris Quinn going in for Tom Timmermans. I remember doing that against Marquette and Dwayne Wade, subbing Chris Quinn for Tom Timmermans back in 2002, I believe that was. And nobody loves to downshift more than us. And, we would be looking to downshift, and we do that in practice and get reps with a 4-guard lineup, whether it's Nick or Tony Sanders, maybe it's Trey Wirtz, which was another reason I'd love to have his availability. And Nate is the only big guy. No question, we will play that way at times and rotate to that. I mentioned Matt Zona, thoroughly impressed with him. He's changed his body. He was a little heavy. He lost the weight, then he gained muscle. He is not going to play above the rim, but there's a strength and toughness and then feel for the game as a young guy. And what I always look for after a week of practice, I like to ask my old guards, which one of the young guys can I put in the game and you'd be confident? And Cormac and Prentice and Dane unanimously said, we need Zona. We need Zona. That's the greatest endorsement. When your senior captains and old guys go, yeah, we need him to win. And so he is, I've been very impressed with him. He will be a key guy for us coming in. Little Martin Gebbin-like as far as a big guy that can play out on the perimeter and handle it and catch it, but's got good strength and he's very physical. He's got a little bit of that New York crazy in him, and I mean that as a compliment. His dad's a New York City fireman. How can you not be a tough dude if your dad's a New York City firefighter? And so I'm very excited about what I've seen in 20 practices, and I think Cormac Ryan and Prentice Hubb are just as excited.
The last question this afternoon will come from Angelo DiCarlo.
Hey, Coach. Good to hear from you. I was curious, when you saw Muffet retire, and with all the COVID happening, at any point did you say, you know what? Maybe I should pick it up too and not deal with this mess?
Well, I think, as I mentioned to some people, you can always get some fatigue in you when you've been doing it in the same place for 20 years. There's no question about it. But I didn't really think like that. I thought, again, it was one of the best kept secrets ever, her retirement in COVID, because no one was working in the offices. And I saw it on Twitter like you guys. I had no heads up on it. And I kind of looked and go, that's probably a great idea. And she had mentioned it a little bit. But, I think given what I have coming back, and given that we invested, and I'm back to this junior class who's a 2 or 3 year nucleus, I was like, I want to see what these guys can do. And I know there was so much unknown all summer about our season, and there still is. I mean, there still is, but you kind of owe it to them to develop them, and you got them this far. So, no, I still got good energy, and I like our young players, and I like the nucleus that we'll have playing together for a couple years. So, I wanted to keep riding with these guys.
All right. Thank you very much, Coach.
Thanks, guys. Take care. See you soon.